This episode is sponsored by Mubi. Don't miss the streaming premiere of Lurker this month on Mubi. When a young retail clerk encounters a rising pop star, he takes the opportunity to edge his way into the in crowd. But as the line between friend and fan blurs, access and proximity become a matter of life and death. From the Bear writer-producer Alex Russell, Lurker is a screw-turning psychological thriller made for the moment. Get 30 days free to watch it now at mubi.com/EOH. Through the 1960s, while Hammer dominated the world of British Gothic horror, it was another well-known British institution that was dominating the world of lowbrow, bawdy comedy.
Oh, hello.
A series of films known as Carry On.
Filthy beasts.
Like Hammer Horror, the Carry On films emerged in the late 50s and, like Hammer Horror, they remained a staple of the genre until their eventual decline in the late 70s.
Have you got a large one?
I've had no complaints so far.
By the mid-1960s, audiences had already been treated to 11 Carry On films in less than a decade.
Oh, that's very good.
The Bond parody Carry On Spying.
Number 00. Oh.
The homage to biblical epics with Carry On Cleo.
Infamy! Infamy! They've all got it in for me!
And even the parody of the American Western with Carry On Cowboy.
My, but you got a big one.
I'm from Texas, man. We all got big ones down there.
But with its 12th movie in 1966, the Carry On team finally tackled horror with Carry On Screaming.
Carry on screaming!
While the Carry On films were often criticised for their cheap, lowbrow bawdiness, Carry On Screaming became a universally praised comedy horror.
What time is it?
Just past December.
I told you not to call me till the beginning of March.
With its story of a mad scientist creating monsters in a laboratory that was chock full of references to everything from The Mummy to Dracula to Frankenstein to Jekyll and Hyde. Over time, Carry On Screaming has garnered the reputation for not just being one of the best Carry On films, but one of the all-time great British comedies.
Crying tonight!
Join me as we continue exploring the evolution of man-made monsters, and we discuss one of the Carry On classics, Carry On Screaming. Frying tonight. Hello and welcome back to the evolution of horror. My name is Mike Muncer and as ever I am your host. In this podcast we explore and dissect the history and the evolution of the horror genre one subgenre at a time. We are currently in the midst of our 11th season exploring the evolution of man-made monsters, and this is part 12. In this week's episode, as that intro suggested, we're going to be covering Carry On Screaming from 1966. It's going to be a really fun discussion. This is a kind of big crossover event for me, really, as I am obviously in the midst of this man-made monsters season. I am also in the middle of a Carry On recap podcast, and I'm also in the middle of a Hammer Horror podcast, which I'm producing as well. So this 1966 Carry On film that is parodying Hammer Horror and is also a man-made monster film is the ultimate crossover event for me. I may just implode. There's lots to talk about. Let's get straight into it. Joining me to discuss this film, a longtime friend of the evolution of horror. She was here last year in one of our funniest episodes of the previous season to discuss the Jaws sequels with me. She is also the co-host of Carry On Up the podcast. She happens to be, like me, a massive horror fan and a massive Carry On fan. She is also a TV presenter and comedian. Welcome back, Susan Calman. Hello, Susan.
Hello, Mike. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Well, listen, we're about to talk about, I think, truly one of the greatest horror films of all time. So how could this not be an excellent thing?
Well, absolutely. And this is funny. For people who don't know, obviously, this is the first time you've been back on this podcast in about a year. But me and you have done quite a lot of recording together over the last few weeks, right? This is quite nice. We've seen each other's faces quite a lot over the last few months.
Yes. Well, what happened is this. What happens, and this is nice for the listeners to know, when you're doing a new series of The Evolution of Horror, you send round a list of films to people who might want to talk about them.
That's right.
And if you're very lucky, you get, for example, Jaws 2, 3 and 4. Always grateful for that opportunity. And when you sent the list round for this one, Carry On Screaming was on it. And I said, oh, I really love Carry On Screaming. And then you went, oh, I really love the Carry On films. And then, before you know it, we're trapped together for several hours a week talking about Carry On films, because it then turned into, why don't we just do a podcast about Carry On films?
I'm so excited. I mean, I'm so happy, Susan, that happened. I'm so happy that I happened to put Carry On Screaming on the list for this season, and that you happened to say to me that you're a fan. I hope you're not regretting that decision and telling me that you're a Carry On fan, Susan.
Oh, no. Oh, no, I love it. Every week we do 2 a week.
Yeah.
And every week I'm like, oh, either it's fabulous or it's, oh, dear God, this is going to be horrific. And that's the joy of Carry On, though.
It is, isn't it? And we'll talk a little bit about what we mean by the carry-ons for people who don't know in just a moment. But first of all, let me just ask you a little bit about the kind of the theme, I suppose, of this particular season. We're looking at kind of man-made monsters, and this is kind of everything from the sort of the dangers of science to the dangers of technology, Frankenstein, Terminator, all of that kind of thing. What are your thoughts generally, Susan, on this kind of area of the horror genre? Are you a fan?
So for me, they're two different things. Love the science. Mm-hmm. Love science. Science is brilliant. Science creates vaccines and brilliant things. Technology, I hate technology. I detest it. My friends know this. I'll give you 2 brief examples of how much I hate it. If I go into a restaurant, and it happened after COVID, and I say, can I have a menu, please? And they say, if you just want to scan the QR code, I just leave. I'm not scanning a QR code. I'm not. And I can't tell you how many times I've pretended to leave the phone at home. I went into a sushi place and said, if you'd like to just scan the QR code. And I said, I haven't brought my phone with me. And the young person honestly couldn't understand why someone would ever not have a phone with them.
Does not compute to somebody young. Yeah.
No, I had my phone with me, Mike. I was lying. But I am not scanning a QR code. I'm not doing it. And the other thing that happened is because what technology does is it makes people not think. They trust technology. Never trust technology. That's what Terminator has taught us.
That's what most of the films in this series are teaching us. That's right.
Don't trust them.
Yeah.
I didn't lose my luggage. An airport lost my luggage.
Oh, no.
And I went to the desk and I filled in the form. And it was 2 suitcases. And 7 days later, a man arrived and I could see him from my window. Because I'm always looking at the window, Mike. Because I'm checking who's in the street.
You're like a cat.
I can tell you the license plate number of every car that comes into the street. I'm fine. I'm all right. And I saw him and thought, great, that's my suitcase, because I had my pants in it. And I ran down and said, thank you. And he said, do you have the email? I said, they didn't send me an email. And he said, I can't give you the suitcase.
What?
And I said, but I've got the wee ticket thing, and that's my suitcase. And he said, but if you don't have the email, I can't give you the suitcase. And I said, you're standing in my driveway with my suitcase.
No.
They didn't send me an email. And he said, well, I can't give you the suitcase. And at that point, not ashamed, Mike, lay on top of the suitcase. I lay on top of the suitcase on my own, because it's my driveway. He's now on my property.
Right.
I said, if you want to take me off this suitcase, you can. But this is my suitcase. But it was because the point of that is, it's my suitcase. I've got the wee ticket, but because I hadn't got an email, he wouldn't give me my suitcase. And that's what I hate about technology.
Yep.
Is people are so reliant on it that they trust it, and that's when you get into really difficult situations. So I find the technology films a little bit more terrifying than the science ones, because I think the technology ones could happen.
Oh, God. I mean, especially recently, right? I mean, I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts on, AI and stuff like that, but I'm guessing...
Hate it.
Yeah.
Hate it.
Yeah.
I was out for lunch. You're right. It was partly because I used to be a lawyer, okay? And so I generally mistrust. I was out at lunch with some colleagues and they went, oh, have you seen this new thing on WhatsApp? And you can ask it any questions. And they were all sitting asking questions. And I went, do you know where that information is going that you're currently asking them? And my friend said, oh, I'm going to ask about my blood test results. I went, don't give them health information.
No.
What are you doing? Because all we're doing is giving information to the Matrix, which will eventually be used against us. Right. I don't even have any store loyalty cards, Mike, because that's how they find out.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't have any loyalty cards. In my wallet, there are 3 cards. Driving license, debit card and credit card. No store cards, no loyalty cards. I refuse to join in the corporate game. Now, some think I'm paranoid. But one day,
Maybe a little.
I'll be proven correct.
I think that's safe. I think that's cautious. I think that's a good way to go. You know, you're right. We are way too reliant on it these days. When I just think of the amount of me that exists just digitally, basically, it's quite scary when you think about it.
It is. And my wife sometimes sighs at me when, when I do this. They want you to tell them things. And I'm not, now, because I'm in the public eye, there's a certain amount of information out there about me and I can't control that.
Right, yeah.
But my local supermarket is not having a digital record of the kind of yogurt I buy.
Yeah, absolutely. Who knows what that could lead to, you know?
Inflation of prices of yogurts when I arrive in. That's what's going to happen. And I'll tell you another thing, Mike. My car, I had to get my car fixed and they gave me a car. The garage gave me a car. And I couldn't drive the car because it was so technologically advanced that I couldn't drive the car. And the man said, oh, you just put it on your app. And I don't want an app to drive a car. It's a car. I want to drive my car with my feet and my hands.
Yeah.
So it's fair to say I'm not going to survive the next 20 years because I'm going to end up just stuck in my house.
It's terrifying, isn't it? Our mutual friend Louise Blaine, who is the polar opposite to you, she's like techie, you know, tech obsessed. She sent me a video the other day. She was in the back of a cab in LA that doesn't have a driver. It was just driving itself, driving her around LA. And it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. The steering wheel was moving itself. Just driving around a main road.
See, that's nonsense.
That would be your worst nightmare,
nonsense.
Right? Yeah.
That to me, that is nonsense, right? There's no one driving that. There's no one driving that car. That's not right.
That's not right.
That's not right.
That's not
Louise
right.
Blaine is, if I'm honest, an idiot for getting in that car with no driver. And I will be messaging Louise Blaine and telling her, like her mother, that she should be more careful.
I love it. It's true. And we talked about this a lot already this season. This idea of science is incredible. Science and progressions of science and, like you said, medicine. But then inevitably, it tends to go further and further to a point where then we take it too far, right? And yeah, like, you know, oh, suddenly we've invented the atomic bomb. Oh, suddenly we've invented, you know, weapons that are being controlled by AI and this kind of thing. And yeah, I guess that's why it's always been kind of great material for horror, hasn't it? I feel like for as long as horror has existed, this kind of story has existed, which is like the mad scientist messing with nature and taking things too far, essentially, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's partly because that level of science is almost incomprehensible to someone who doesn't understand. You know, I've got my O-level in chemistry, grade C, very proud of that.
Yeah.
I was rubbish. But I can't understand it. No. Therefore, the possibilities are limitless. And I think fundamentally, because I was re-listening, I've been driving an awful lot recently, and I went right back to the beginning of the evolution of horror, and I've been downloading some of the early podcasts when you're talking about the slasher series. Now, the slashers tend to be frightening because there is an incomprehensible enemy, for example, Michael Myers, that cannot be killed, seemingly cannot be killed.
Yes.
And just relentlessly pursues. And I think the science in a similar way, I can't understand it, therefore I cannot defeat it.
That's right.
I can't do anything to stop what's happening. And I think fundamentally, even when you look at something like The Strangers, people come into your house, you cannot stop them. I think the out of control nature of science is what part of the the peril is. Because it's so easy to believe... Well, not in my house, because I won't have an Alexa in my house because it's listening to everything you say, Mike. But it's so easy to believe that all of your home appliances could be infected by something and could turn against you. That is something, and you could do nothing about it because very few of us have the literacy to stop it happening. And that's the thing. I think the older I get, the more frightening not being in control is, and not being able to fight back.
That's right. And I think often these movies are fun and quite entertaining popcorn movies in this subgenre, but they're often dealing with something that is just adjacent to something that's a lot more real and scary. Like we were talking about the kind of big atomic monster movies of the 50s, the giant bugs attacking cities and stuff. But that is a very, very clear metaphor for mass devastation that atomic bombs were causing, right? Or the fear of what they would cause. And as ever with horror, it's like it's dealing with our genuine fears and anxieties in hopefully quite a fun, accessible way, right? Which is nice, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, as always, the reason why the horror genre, I think, is exceptional is it taps into fear. And Frankenstein, which is really the ultimate kind of sciencey horror film.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this about me, but I've been fascinated by spiritualism for years, especially Victorian psychics and spiritualists and Houdini and all of that kind of thing. And a lot of it grew out of conflict, so the Boer War or the First World War and people being desperate to contact. So many people had died during those conflicts. And fundamentally, that is tapping into this idea of, is there life after death? Can you resurrect? And if you resurrect, is the soul there? And that's always the interesting thing for me about Frankenstein, is you can resurrect the flesh, but can you resurrect the personality, the person? And all of that is of its time. That's what they're all thinking about at that point. They're wanting to know, what is there after death? Can you rejuvenate? But if you do, what are you going to get back as a result of it? And that's why I think it was so frightening for audiences way back when Frankenstein was written and then when it first came to the screen, is these are questions people have thought about. And especially back then when I think the spiritual life was much more to the fore. It's actually dealing with a big issue, Frankenstein.
Massive, huge. It really deals with this idea of like the existence of a soul versus a body, and you know what it means to meet your own creator, and what if your creator rejects you, and all of this kind of thing. Really interesting. Do you have any kind of favorites in terms of the kind of, obviously we've had hundreds of Frankenstein movies out there. Are you a fan of kind of any of the Frankenstein movies? Anything in particular?
I really love the classic. I love the classic because I think it's easy, and we've talked about this a lot in terms of horror. The impact of that first film, the first kind of incarnations of Frankenstein, would have been terrifying.
Oh, God. Yeah, absolutely.
Personally speaking, and this is a very personal thing, when I first met my better half 23 years ago, I seem to remember trying to impress her at Christmas time. And I think I said, what are your favourite films? And she said, Carry On Screaming and Young Frankenstein.
Did she really say that?
Oh, absolutely. And I bought her a DVD player that I couldn't afford. And I bought the double bill on DVD. And for us, there are two favourite films. My wife can recite Young Frankenstein from start to finish.
Oh, yeah. What a movie.
So for me, it's always Young Frankenstein. Of the Frankensteins, it's Young Frankenstein.
Oh,
because
undoubtedly, yeah.
Apart from Carry On Screaming, it's the most perfect comedy horror film, I think, in the world.
Oh my God, that's incredible. I didn't know that. That is such a weird coincidence that was what your better half's favourite
Our
film
films are Carry On Screaming and Young Frankenstein. It's not Bridget Jones's Diary or anything.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I agree with you. Young Frankenstein, I think, probably is the best Frankenstein movie. I think it looks beautiful. It's immaculately made. It's hilarious, but it does it in a loving way, doesn't it? It's perfect.
Oh, it's
perfect.
And Madeline Kahn has always been probably one of my greatest comic idols ever. From Clue and from all the other things that Madeline Kahn is beautiful and amazing, and Terry Garn and still sometimes I cannot hear the song Putting on the Ritz without joining in the wrong way.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a scene. Incredible. Well, this is good. We've talked a lot so far about all of these big meaty topics of technology and the existence of a soul and all. What does this mean? Leads us perfectly into the masterpiece that is Carry On Screaming, Susan. Of course, you know.
Of course. They're often discussing such existential issues as, is there a soul?
So, oh my goodness. Let's start by, because, you know, the Carry On films, I don't know these days how well known they are, particularly outside of the UK, right? So before we get into Carry On Screaming, let's just get people up to speed on what these films actually are. Yes. Susan, we've talked about this a lot over the last few weeks. What are the Carry On films?
So on a very basic level, and I think it's important to if you don't know what they are, they were a series of films, a franchise, if you will, starting in the 50s and ending in the 70s, at the start of the 70s, really. They had largely the same cast who didn't ever refer to any of the other films.
Right.
So they were standalone, comedy. Known, I think, although we have, I think, usurped this in our podcast, largely known for slightly bawdy seaside postcard humour.
Yes.
And we talked on our very first podcast that there are certain ingredients, aren't there, in a Carry On film, Mike? And you did a wonderful film, which is available in the iPlayer, about those ingredients. So go for it.
Yes, that's right. So there are, like you said, there are a series of films, bawdy humour. They often have to have the same central cast, you know, Kenneth Williams, Sid James, Joan Sims, Barbara Windsor, Hattie Jakes, a bunch of other kind of famous sort of character actors at the time in Britain. And they often, basically every film, like you said, Susan, is different, is standalone, and it can basically be anything. They started as kind of comedies that were sort of observing kind of everyday British life, and they were sort of satirising kind of British institutions. So the first ever movie, 1958, was Carry On Sergeant, and that was kind of looking at kind of national service in the UK, which was still a thing at the time, conscriptions and national service and life in the army, and it was a kind of knockabout comedy set in the army. And then that was really successful, and so a year later we had Carry On Nurse, which was a knockabout comedy, but this time it was set in a hospital and it was looking at the NHS and kind of what it means to work in medicine and be a nurse. And then we had Carry On Teacher that looked at the education system, and then Carry On Constable that looked at the police. So when they started, they were kind of looking at specifically kind of elements of British life and what makes, and I suppose English life as well, really. There is a kind of real Englishness to them. And then as they go on, they start getting a little bit more out there, right? And then suddenly, about 8 or 9 films in, we get Carry On Jack, which is this kind of interesting sort of period set movie about pirates in the Napoleonic War. And then we had Carry On Spying, which is a kind of Bond satire. So soon, the Carry On films could be anything, right? They could be a satire of a famous film genre. We had westerns, we had horror, we had spy movies. They could be kind of just like kitchen sink comedies about British life. They could be historical dramas turned into comedies. And essentially, therefore, the only thing that really connected them was the title Carry On, the cast that were in them, and then, like you said, Susan, the kind of bawdy, I guess, humour, the kind of, I don't know how would we describe the humour, Susan? There's a kind of mix of slapstick and bawdiness and innuendo.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's the interesting thing about what we've been doing, which is watching all of them, is there's really there is an evolution.
There really is.
In the Carry On films.
Yeah.
The first 10 are actually very gentle and sentimental, or the first 8, very gentle, sentimental. Then we get into these kind of big productions, which is your cowboys and your screamings and your spyings and your don't lose your head. And then, because what we've established, much like horror, is that the producer of the Carry On films, Peter Rogers, to make a quick buck would jump on any trend that was going.
Yes.
So in the 70s, everything became, because there was a bit of a revolution, there was a bit of relaxation, became much more Confessions of a Window Cleaner.
Yes.
Bit of a sex comedy type situation going on. And that, unfortunately, is what a lot of people remember about the Carry On films. But actually, before that are some really excellent performances, stories, very funny films. And I think one of the things you and I are trying to do is to resurrect, to a certain extent, a little bit of respect for some of the films.
Yeah.
Because, and you know this, listen, if you listen to the podcast, you'll hear me say this every episode practically. The only other film franchise that's almost as long as James Bond.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
And there are some absolutely appalling things in James Bond films. But people talk about them with huge reverence.
That's right. Yes.
And for me, it's the actors involved. It's Hattie Jacques, it's Joan Sims, it's Kenneth Williams, it's Charles Hawtrey. Really brilliant things. And you know what? They're sweet. If you watch a Carry On film, people fall in love in 2 seconds.
They do.
And it's so some of them are really sweet films.
Although I should say, at the point we are in our Carry On podcast right now, we're about 12 films into the 30.
Yes.
And I think it's safe to say that we're in the good phase right now. Like they are.
Listen, it's going to get horrific.
It's going to get horrific. Ask Susan whether she still thinks they're really sweet when we get to Carry On Dick in 1976 or whatever.
The thing is, it's we've talked about it as well quite a lot because Mike has a lot of women on the go. And one of the other women he has on the go is Stacey Ponder in the Twin Peaks podcast. And if you've not listened to that, I highly recommend it because it was really great.
Thank you.
And Mike and Stacey talk about the first 2 series of Twin Peaks, and Stacey's quite happy, isn't she? A lot of the time.
She's like, this is really fun. This is better than I was expecting it was going to be. Yeah.
And then when you watch The Return, I just heard a woman having a slow breakdown. And I think, basically, this is what's going to happen to me, because right now I'm loving this.
Yeah.
You know, there are unquestionably some films with some terrible things happening, which we deal with in terms of the portrayal of various things, and we do not shy away from that. But largely, this has been very pleasurable. But it's like over the horizon, I can just see some terrible things coming my way.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But still worth watching, still worth looking at, and. I don't know about you, Mike, but every week I'm quite excited about what the next film is.
It's honestly the highlight of my week right now. No offence to this podcast, Evolution of Horror, which I also love, of course, but like there is something really joyous about sitting down and watching these movies that I grew up watching as a child. And just making me laugh, just making me have a little giggle, basically. Like that's all they're there to do.
Yes,
we talk about this so much every week on that podcast, but the cast are genuinely brilliant, aren't they? I think no matter how silly or childish the jokes and the scripts can be at times, I think those cast members, Joan Sims and Kenneth Williams and people, they elevate it, don't they?
Absolutely.
I mean, they are genuinely brilliant. Yeah.
And if you're interested in filmmaking and British filmmaking. Yeah. We just did a run of films, which was, what was it? Spying, Cleo and Cowboy.
Yeah.
3 in a year.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
They were churning out 3 films in a year. Now, with the same director, and we keep going on about that as well, the same guy directed all of these films. Yeah. I think that's a remarkable achievement. So if you're interested, I think, at all in what was happening from the mid-50s to the early 70s in Britain, the Carry On films reflect British society and attitudes. Now, we may not like them,
no,
but you can see them on screen. And it's an extraordinary thing. No one else in the world has a time capsule of what was happening for 20 years reflected on screen. And that's one of the things that I'm so passionate about is we are seeing the living history of what was happening in the country reflected through these films.
I love that too. It's so interesting, even watching the way in which the fashion is changing and which the humour is starting to change already, you know, because where we're up to, we're in the sort of mid-60s, and it was such a historic time of change, wasn't it, I suppose?
Completely.
And it is really fascinating seeing that reflected in these silly, very low-budget kind of studio comedies. And I think in some ways the other parallel that I suppose a lot of people will be more aware of who listen to this podcast is Hammer, right? And I think we'll talk about Hammer a lot this week. week, but actually there's a very similar timeline and progression. Hammer Studios, or Hammer Films, I should say, they started making horror films in around the mid to late 50s. And early on, they were kind of took themselves quite seriously. They were gothic. They were intended to be scary. You know, Frankenstein and Dracula and Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, all those great people. By the mid 60s, they started to kind of shift and change a little bit. And they started to be a bit more daring and take more risks with different types of stories. And then by the 70s, again, it's the same old story. Censorship had relaxed. Suddenly you're getting lesbian vampires, boobs,
Lots
nudity,
of boobs. Lots of
slutty.
boobs. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and there is actually weirdly a bit of a parallel between Hammer and Carry On.
Do you know, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. It starts off, as the Carry On film does, doing... I mean, we've talked a lot. There's a film called Carry On Cabby, which is a precursor to these incredible kitchen sink dramas and Kathy Come Home, and it's really, you watch it and you have a tear in your eye. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then you've got Carry On Emmanuel, 15 years later. And you're right, because I watched, I don't know whether it was Mark Gatiss or someone who did this incredible review of horror, and it really is lesbian vampires by the end of it for no apparent reason.
Yes.
And if I may be so bold, Mike, with a bit of experience, some of the most unconvincing kissing scenes I've ever seen between two women in my entire life. But the point is, they've got their boobs out.
Yeah.
But that is a reflection of, bearing in mind these days, I don't know how many programs I could watch. At that point, they were producing whatever they produced, people were watching, because the choice wasn't there. And at that point, people were desperate for a little bit of nudity and a little bit of,
That's right.
all that kind of stuff. So you're absolutely right. The Carry On films follow almost every other franchise going because people are wanting something slightly different. But I'm still, at the moment, we're at film 12, very happy.
Yeah, me
please
too.
someone check in on me.
Keep checking in on
10
Susan
films
over the
time.
next few months.
Please.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Because we haven't got to and again, people who may not know the Carry-Ons might have seen the famous moments, for example, Carry On Camping, Barbara Windsor's bikini top flinging off, right?
Yes.
Like that. Those are the images that people think of when they think of the Carry-Ons. And actually,
Yes.
like you said, 12 films in, it's not been like that at all. And actually,
No.
we're about to talk about the 12th film in the series, Carry On Screaming. And actually, Carry On Screaming isn't at all like that, really.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And you have to remember also, because there were so many clip shows made of the Carry On films that were shown on a Sunday on ITV or whatever it was. People remember various clips of the Carry On films.
Yes.
Now, a great example of this is when we watched Carry On Cleo, and there's a first 15 minutes that I didn't remember. I mean, it's historic.
With the cavemen and brontosauruses.
Right. The least historically accurate thing I've ever seen in my life. But if you've only just seen the clips of Infamy, they've all got it Infamy.
Yeah.
You haven't seen the whole film. So it's been a really interesting journey. I mean, even when you watch Carry On Nurse, when you watch it and everyone's having 20 Woodbines in bed, everyone's smoking.
It's so
just
good.
looking at what used to be the case,
Yes.
I think is absolutely fascinating. But my love for Hattie Jakes and Joan Sims and Kenneth Williams has only grown
Yeah.
watching the performances in the Carry On films.
Incredible. And we won't dwell on this, and people can listen to us talk about this in our podcast, because we talk about a different cast member each week and a different person involved in production each week. But they weren't treated well on these films, right? I mean, famously, this franchise was extremely low budget, run by a producer, Peter Rogers, who underpaid all of them horrifically. And even though these were some of the most famous British character actors of the time, they really weren't paid their dues, were they? And they were worked to the bone. Like you said, sort of 3 or 4 films a year they churned out.
They really were. And I think one of the reasons why the Carry On films are still so iconic are the cast. It became about them and the tragedies in a way of their lives as well. And I think that's one of the reasons why they're so remembered, is that actually, and Peter Rogers always said the Carry On films were bigger than the cast, and they weren't, because they are so important to the Carry On films.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, and I know Louise Blaine, who gets in cars with no drivers, has talked to me before. She loves the Scream films. They're her...
Yes.
Like, if she's feeling upset, she'll watch the Scream films.
Yes.
The Carry On films, to me, are Sunday afternoon on the sofa, you know, with the family, feeling safe and happy and secure.
Yeah.
So I think emotionally they're also more than just the films. You remember them growing up, don't you?
Yeah, oh God, you really do. And that's going to be the really interesting thing about this episode of EOH and also our Carry On podcast is I'm so intrigued to know if there is going to be anybody out there who, as a grown adult, watches a Carry On film for the first time and what on earth they make of it, right, in 2025. Because there is a lot of stuff about these films, Susan, that are incredibly dated and incredibly silly when watching them in 2025, I think, right?
Well, one of the things I would say that I've noticed as a theme is there's a lot of men staring at women's cleavage. I would say that's not acceptable these days.
Nope.
And if you watch, if you're a 17-year-old boy, 18-year-old boy, who has, for example, an aunt like me or a mum like me who says, never ever stare at a woman's cleavage, it's so disrespectful. And then they watch a film where essentially that's all that happens. Yeah. Right, it's not now, and I don't even think back then. But there's a lot of Sid James staring at women's breasts going, whoa.
Yeah.
No, that's not right. Don't do that.
Don't do
that.
You
mustn't do that. That's really bad.
No. And we'll talk about a few things in Carry On Screaming. The kind of the archetypal women of, like, you've got the sexy, seductive one on one side. You've got the kind of nagging wife on the other side, right? There is a lot of that going on in the Carry On film. So these films are not without their faults, and we do always talk about their faults, but, you know, there is also so much to appreciate as well. That's the thing.
Oh,
you know?
Completely. And what reminded me of it was I was listening to your discussion about Halloween from your first series, and you had said, I love this, because you did so many of these things. You said, Mike.
Oh, no.
That whilst you... No, it's absolutely fine.
Okay.
You were talking about Halloween, and you said that you had an issue with the portrayal of the friends of Laurie Strode.
Yeah.
My only real issue with Carry On Screaming is some of the things, and I think we'll get on to, I think they're doing it deliberately, about Joan Sims.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I think generally, because I rewatched Carry On Screaming, and my wife and I hadn't rewatched it in a while, and you know that way you go, oh God, I've said to everyone this is my favourite. What if this is awful? And we watched it and we stopped it and looked at each other and went, oh no, that's brilliant.
Thank God it's good. Yeah, exactly.
So I've got a couple of issues with some of the things in it, but largely it was even better actually watching it again than it was watching it previously.
I love that. Well, let's get into it. So Carry On Screaming from 1966. And as Susan had mentioned, we are 12 films into the Carry On series at this point. And around the kind of 8th or 9th, they started dipping into taking on different film genres. They had done a cowboy film at this point. They had done a historical epic at this point. They'd done a pirate movie at this point. And this is their first foray into horror, satirizing horror. So Carry On Screaming. Susan, just set the scene for us. What is overall the kind of plot of Carry On Screaming?
Okay. This is actually slightly more complicated than you would think, because it starts off quite simple and then it takes a right turn. But let me try. So basically, 2 inept police officers investigate the disappearance of several women from some very creepy woods, completely ignoring the fact that the culprits are clearly the strange brother and sister combo who live in a mansion in the middle of the woods.
That's right.
There are references to every horror film under the planet,
yes,
and a slightly odd subplot regarding turning women into mannequins. We'll get on to that because I'd completely forgotten about that. Yeah. Essentially, everything is resolved at the end of it. So it starts off as quite a simple disappearance mystery, and then, my goodness, confusion reigns after that. That's
right. And actually, yeah, that's really interesting what you said about, you know, I've put this in a season on man-made monsters as if this is some sort of sci-fi horror film. It's not. But I think my memory of it always was that at the centre of it, you've got this almost mad scientist like villain, played by Kenneth Williams, which I suppose that is the case. But like you said, Susan, this is dabbling in every type of horror movie at the time, right? It feels like it is paying homage or poking fun at Universal monster movies, The Wolfman, Hammer, vampires. Take your pick, really. I feel like it's in there, right?
Well, it's a magpie film, and actually, when you watch it, you realise that. And I started jotting down some of the things that I spotted, just so that people are aware, because it has so much going on. It's got references to Addams Family and the Munsters, without question.
Yes.
It's got references to Hammer. It's got references to Universal monster movies, Wolfman, Mummy, all of that kind of stuff. Sherlock Holmes, without question.
Yeah.
Hound of the Baskervilles, all of that kind of stuff. Serial killer films, because it starts off actually with 6 women have disappeared in the woods.
That's right.
House of Wax. It's got references to.
Yes.
And it really made me think of there's a film called Murder by Death.
That rings a bell.
Have you ever seen Murder by Death?
That rings a bell. I don't know. Remind me what it is.
Murder by Death. In the back of my mind, it's Neil Simon, but it might not be. Where there is a haunted house, which looks exactly like the house in this, and a series of fictional detectives with their names slightly changed arrive. So there's a Hercule Poirot, there's a Miss Marple, there's a Charlie Chan.
Right.
And they have to solve murders, and I believe the villain is played by Truman Capote.
Amazing. Love this.
It is the most exceptionally bizarre film you'll ever see.
Yeah.
And it's quite like this in a way, in that it's playing on the tropes of detective novels, if you will. But actually, this film is not just Hammer.
No.
It's got ingredients from so many other things in it as well.
It does. And this is the thing, right? We talked to, well, let me just ask you, we haven't really I haven't officially asked you this yet, Susan, but what do you think of it, especially rewatching it now? What did you think of it? How was your experience of rewatching Carry On Screaming?
I mean, I loved it.
Good.
I loved it. I think it looks incredible.
Yeah.
I think there are Easter eggs all over the place for people who want them. But if you don't want them, you don't need to worry about them. I think the performances are wonderful. I think there's actually quite a lot of love in this film.
Yeah.
For the horror genre.
Yeah.
I really think it has been done with affection. I think it's played exactly correctly, and I adored it. I think it's wonderful.
Me too. And like, no surprise really that growing up and being a fan of the Carry On films, this was always one of my favourites because it was the horror one. And I think I've only come to appreciate it more and more the more horror I now know about, and the more I watch this movie. Like you said, looking at those amazing visuals, this looks better than a lot of the other Carry On films. The costumes are great. I couldn't find a confirmation of this anywhere, but I've got a feeling I read somewhere that they actually got to use some of the sets and costumes from Hammer as well at the time.
Right.
Which wouldn't surprise me, because it does look better, doesn't it, than a lot of the other Carry On films we've seen, you know?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's little things in it. So there's really 3-4 main settings. You've got the woods, and you've got the police office, you've got the home of Detective Sergeant Bung, and then you've got the big mansion itself.
Yes.
And it's got beautiful things in it, like flicking a switch and then the stairs that go down to the basement.
Yes.
And the whole atmosphere of it it's perfect. You believe it, you're there, and it evokes such a time. So without question, from the very first scene. Now, sorry, before we start, can we talk about the song, though, before we start?
We have to talk about, we'd start with a novelty song, which the previous Carry On film, Carry On Cowboy, did this, right?
Yes.
It starts with a song, and we continue that tradition here with Carry On Screaming. Carry On Screaming!
Carry on screaming. Carry on screaming. 'Cause when you're screaming, I know that you're dreaming of me.
So I'd forgotten about this. Now, it's a weird, slightly Matt Monro Elvis style song. So I'm about to watch Carry On Screaming. I know it's a comedy film, but I'd completely forgotten. Carry on screaming, you bring out the monster in me. And it's a bit, and then it cuts to some fog in a wood, and you go, what the hell just happened there?
What's going on? Yeah.
But that is the slightly weird nature of a Carry On film, though, isn't it? Like, things happen and you go, what just happened?
It's like they're just, and I kind of respect this, they're just sort of trying stuff out at this point, it feels like, right? Like they've established themselves as a bit of an institution. They've got these movies that they're churning out that always do pretty well in the box office. So they're just trying stuff out at this point, and they've given the novelty song a go.
I think
you know?
the main thing that comes across in this entire film for me is how much fun everyone seems to be having. That's the thing.
Yes.
There are carry-on films that we have discussed in the podcast where I don't know if everyone was enjoying themselves.
No, sometimes the cast look miserable or exhausted,
yes.
right? Yeah.
This one, I mean, Kenneth Williams is having the time of his life, and Fenella Fielding is, and so it seems to me that everyone has gone, someone has said to them, we're going to do a horror one, and they go, oh yes, this is going to be marvellous.
Perfect, isn't it?
And everybody, the thing about the carry-on films is because if you watch them like we have, one after another, it's almost like seeing your family at Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one Christmas you think, oh, that cousin's not doing very well. There's a problem there.
Yes, exactly.
And then you have one Christmas where everyone's just having a great time and you think, okay, we're all on track again. No problem. It's like that. And this feels like the Christmas where everybody's marriage is fine.
Everyone's having a lovely time.
Yeah. And that comes through, though. I think the weird thing is you can tell when they're all having a lovely time.
Susan, you are a comedian and you are also a massive horror fan. And we've talked about this before together, but that very, very fine line almost between comedy and horror, right? There is something about these two genres where they work together so well, right? I think this movie proves that. There's something about marrying those two genres that just seems to work, doesn't it, I think?
Yes, you know? I mean, comedy and horror together can be brilliant or can be absolutely horrific. There are terrible spoofs, obviously. The point about comedy and horror being similar is that they are the same beats in a way. You want to surprise people.
Yeah.
You want to give people a sharp intake of breath, and then it's the release.
Yeah.
So if you watch a horror film and you're terrified and then you go,
yeah,
you know, and that's the point. It's the same emotional feeling that you want to give people with comedy and horror. And that's why I'm so boring. Structurally, she says, pushing her glasses up her nose. Structurally, I very much admire the horror genre because it's the same thing I'm trying to do when I write a show. When I write a show, and people sometimes wouldn't believe that we go to the lengths of this, but I'm looking at the structure of it. I'm looking at how do I end that? How do I do that? Am I wanting to surprise people? Am I wanting to, do those things? So structurally, they're really similar and very good bedfellows when they work well together.
Yeah, really interesting that kind of, like you say, that they have a rhythm. They're about timing. They give us a kind of cathartic release, both of them in a way. Both of them, and we talked about this before, generally sneered upon by critics and cinephiles. Absolutely. Right? I mean, the carry-on films are a perfect example. They are thought of as the lowest common denominator movies, right? In a way, in the same way that a lot of like slasher movies or Hammer horror movies were.
Absolutely, I think they are similarly sneered at by not everybody, obviously, but culturally, if you're a posh dinner party and someone says, what's your favourite film? And you say, well, it's Halloween or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And someone else will say, well, I prefer Fellini.
Right.
Now, I've said this to you before. I went to a Fellini marathon at the GFT. Honest to God. Right? I'm sorry. I'd give me a Friday the 13th marathon any day compared to that. And everyone can like their own thing and everything else. But I'm proud of the fact that I enjoy things that perhaps others would say, well, what's the cultural merit in that? Yeah. I'll tell you what it is. And we mentioned this in the podcast the other week on Pointless. We always end up talking about Pointless.
Always.
There was a 99 score for Friday the 13th. It is so in the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Now, why are you sneering at something that's clearly made such an impact?
Exactly. Yeah.
Just because you think it's not good enough.
Yeah.
But what we know is John Carpenter's The Thing or Halloween or any of those films are incredible and have stood the test of time.
Yeah.
As has Carry On Screaming. 1966 it was
incredible.
Made.
Yeah.
And it's still as wonderful now as it was back then.
And I think this is interesting. The novelty song finishes, the opening title's finished, but then we go bam into a blood-curdling scream, right? And we meet Angela Douglas, I believe, right? And she's...
Yes.
This is what's quite interesting about it. When I was quite a young child watching this, I genuinely found this opening scene quite scary. It plays this quite, in a way, it takes it quite seriously. The couple are making out in the woods and there is something lurking in the trees watching them, right? And there's a moment when and this is classic horror. This is every horror film you've ever seen. The boyfriend goes off to investigate the strange noise, leaves her by herself, and then this monster comes for her, right? And there's this moment when she turns around to look at the monster and she can't actually get a scream out. She's kind of like that. And little child Mike found that genuinely quite unnerving, that sequence, you know?
In his wee pyjamas.
That's right, exactly.
The thing is, it was, I remember being very frightened by it as well. And this is what I mean about the talent of Gerald Thomas. The last film he did was Carry On Cowboy before this, right?
Yes.
Which is a Western. Yeah. And suddenly what he's doing is managing to use the techniques of Hammer of other horror to create a stone cold perspective, cutting away, the editing's excellent. And it's what I really like about Carry On Screaming, that whilst there are funny bits, obviously, the horror parts of it are often played entirely straight.
Yeah. And I love that.
You know?
I love that. It pulls off a really good balance, I think. So yeah, we've got our young couple, Jim Dale, Angela Douglas, who we talked about with Carry On Cowboy.
Yes.
And Jim Dale, who has really kind of emerged by this point. I think he's been in every film we've talked about since Cabby. He's really emerging as one of the big new stars of the franchise at this point, isn't he? It feels like.
Completely. And it's... Yeah. One of the things as well about doing the podcast that I've realised is the people who I thought were in every film aren't in every film.
Right.
And the people who I didn't realise were in more films are.
Yeah,
so this is another film that doesn't have Hattie Jakes in it, for example.
Yeah.
Who is synonymous with the Carry On films, but actually hasn't been in the last 4 or 5.
No, because it's like they don't have a place for her in the kind of costume drama genre mashup type ones, right? It's like Hattie Jakes belongs in the kitchen sink Britain type ones almost, you know?
Completely. And Sid James, so I think this is really interesting and worth talking about before we get into more of the plot. The main character is Harry H. Corbett.
Yes.
Who was paid, according to various trivia, £12,000 for the role, which is the most anyone has ever been paid at this point. Because again, notoriously, the cast were paid about threepence halfpenny for their role. Yeah. So Harry H. Corbett is Detective Sergeant Bung, who's the protagonist, the hero. Now, that was going to be Sid James. And I am glad it was not Sid James.
Are you? Yeah, I was going to ask you about this, whether or not you missed Sid James. But I agree, this is Harry H. Corbett's first appearance and only appearance on the series. He was a bigger name, right, like you said, and that's why Was he doing Steptoe and Son by this point?
He was, because they play the Steptoe and Son music.
Right, there you go,
In Carry On, which my wife went, oh. So, yes, he was in Steptoe and Son, and he's a bit younger.
Yes.
He's quite handsome, you know.
He is, yeah.
So as the romantic lead, I kind of believe... I thought he was really very good in it, actually. And I'm glad it wasn't Sid... And I never thought I'd say that, but I'm glad it wasn't Sid James in the lead role.
Yeah, it's kind of... You're right. It's hard to imagine now Sid James playing that role, actually, isn't it? There are certain things I can absolutely picture, but those moments when he's, you know, turning into a monster in the final act and stuff, I just think, how would Sid James have done that, I wonder, you know?
I don't know. So I'm actually... I think, again, casting-wise, you've got Harry H. Corbett as Detective Sergeant Bung, Kenneth Williams is Dr. Orlando Watt, with his sister, Fenella Fielding, as Valeria Watt.
Yes.
Peter Butterworth, who appeared in the last... He's just started coming into the franchise as Detective Constable Slowbottom, Jim Dale as Albert Potter. And then you've got Joan Sims as Emily Bung. We'll come on to that.
Yes.
And interestingly, Charles Hawtrey as Dan the Lavatory Man.
Right, which was also a bit of a last-minute casting change-up, right? That's interesting too.
What's really interesting is the Carry On films are about to be the Rank organisation are about to get involved.
Yes, that's right.
They're feeling pressure from overseas distributors. And Charles Hawtrey was not meant to be in this film, but as I understand it, was it the American distributor said, we really want Charles Hawtrey in the film?
That's right. Yeah, American distributors were like, we can't have this Carry On film without Charles Hawtrey in it, basically. So they had to give him this tiny role, and he's on screen for, I think, 3 minutes or something like that, something ridiculous. And yet he is still one of the top billed stars, because basically the Americans were like, we must have Charles Hawtrey in this film.
Oh, you're the young fellow who's with that girl, aren't you?
Yes. What do you know about it?
Plenty, but it'll cost you a bit.
All right. There'll be quite enough of that sort of talk.
Yeah, what do you think you're doing? Who are you pushing?
I'm a police detective, and I must warn you that I shall take down anything you say.
All right, trousers.
One of the things we've discussed at length is Charles Hawtrey had constant ongoing battles with Peter Rogers about his billing, about the money, about everything else.
Yes.
And I have to say his appearance is lovely. I mean, it is a diversion that you could easily see was not necessary in the film, which we'll talk about in terms of the plot, but he's there.
Sure.
And then John Pertwee appears again. John Pertwee has been in the last 2 films with, I mean, as we've said before, John Pertwee does not play things small.
He does not. Yeah.
He's not a man who has a small performance in anything. But I think the cast works very, very well. And whilst I miss Hattie Jakes, I don't really see where she would have fitted in.
And same with Sid James, in a way. So, I agree. It's not actually a carry-on film that has as many of the iconic stars, because this is often thought of as one of the best-loved carry-on films, one of the most famous, one of the most iconic, and yet it's that funny thing again of, there's no Sid, there's no Joan, there's no Barbara Windsor, there's no Hattie Jakes, so there's no Kenneth Connor. So, that is really interesting. But the whole cast, like you said, Susan, just are having an absolute blast in this. They're all loving it. So after we have this initial attack in the woods, and this is where we first see the monster, right? The monster emerge from the trees, coming for Angela Douglas's character. How would we describe it? Is this a kind of Frankenstein creature type spoof here with this?
Paying more attention to this film than I've ever done before, and watching it more times than I've ever watched it before, I had always remembered that Oddbod was a Frankenstein type creature. He's not, though, is he? Not
really. He's sort of hairy. He's almost like a kind of Wolfman meets Frankenstein's creature, isn't he, or something?
So John Pertwee, later on, who is the tiny police station's dedicated scientific advisor, let's not worry about that. One of the things you have to, when you watch a carry-on film, you do a lot of, let's not worry about that. Let's not worry about that. Yeah. He establishes, I think, that Oddbod is sort of a prehistoric creature.
Yes.
And Dr. Watt says he dug him up in the woods and reanimated him. So he is reanimated.
Right.
But Oddbod is not the sum of other parts.
No.
It is one creature that he found and reanimated him. The issue is, now I remember when I was younger finding this the most repulsive thing in the world. The regeneration process makes the creature fragile, which is why when Oddbod abducts the lady, a bit of him falls off.
That's right. He loses a finger.
Falls off.
Yeah.
And it is the most I find that really disgusting. Yeah. That manky, hairy finger.
It's disgusting. Yeah, it is. And then, of course, what we get then is a new, completely created, regenerated, smaller version of Oddbod, Junior, I think they call him, right? That is made from that finger. So John Pertwee sort of plugs that finger into some sort of machine, and then all of a sudden, bam, we've got this new mini version of Oddbod as well. So that is a sort of man-made monster appearing there in Junior. But you're right, in my head, it was always a Frankenstein's creature as well, but it's not quite.
It's not.
No.
But what I wondered was, it's worth talking about, because what I wondered, again, Peter Rogers has this incredible ability to avoid copyright laws by just changing one word of something.
Yes.
Because Oddbod, in the way he looks, has some of the elements of Frankenstein, slightly flat head.
That's right. Yeah.
The lumbering gait.
Yeah. Doesn't talk.
Mm-hmm. Oddbod Jr., I tell you something, slightly meows like a kitten, which caused my 7 cats a lot of distress.
I found Junior very creepy, to be honest. Why does he do that? Don't like him.
All 7 cats stood up and went, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh, geez, they're going to attack the television." So I don't know. And welcome to the section of the podcast we like to call Mike and Susan Miss Marpling.
Yes.
So my theory about this is I wonder if they couldn't blatantly rip off Frankenstein. Even Peter Rogers couldn't do that. So have kind of created this thing which is reanimated, but isn't the sum of parts. Mm-hmm. Therefore, he could get away with it.
Yes. And they did have to be very careful. Something we've talked about with Hammer's Frankenstein, starring Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, is that they had to completely change the design of the creature. That they would have been sued for doing the Boris Karloff Universal Frankenstein creature.
Right.
Like, they own that
Yes.
that image, essentially. So the Christopher Lee one is entirely different. So you're right. I'm sure there's part of it goes into that, this idea of like, we're going to satirize these films, but we can't be too obvious about it, almost, you know?
Yes. But so basically what they've done is they've created what looks like Frankenstein, but made it very hairy.
Yes.
There's a lot of hair stuck on.
Mm-hmm.
And Oddbod is also incredibly strong. And again, when you watch Frankenstein with Boris Karloff and he's effortlessly lifting women up and lifting things up, Oddbod does the same thing because he weeks up the women.
Yeah.
And
slings
takes
them
off
over his
into the woods.
shoulder. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And off
Yeah.
he goes. So it is quite a frightening start. I mean, the thing is, because they've had to make Oddbod look not like Frankenstein, he's slightly comical.
Yes, he is.
A little bit. So it's frightening, but it's not too frightening. Oddbod is not too frightening a proposition.
Yeah. He's frightening exactly. He's not. I mean, your kids can watch this movie and they'll be absolutely fine, you know.
Absolutely. So, then we get the first glimpse of the bungs in bed.
That's right, because a woman's gone missing, and so the police call Detective Bung, Inspector Bung, right? And so, speaking of, fear of technology, Susan,
yes, I know.
They're not. Joan Sims's wife, not a fan of the telephone, of the newfangled.
She's really
invention.
not happy about that telephone, is she?
No, so we should say this is set in kind of Edwardian times, I think, like Edwardian London, so very, very, very early 20th century. So the telephone was a new thing, right, at that point. And Joan Sims, not a fan of the telephone.
It's only the telephone bell. Aren't you ever going to get used to it?
I'll never get used to it. The invention of the devil, that's what it is. People talking through wires, waking respectable people at all hours. It's like someone's walking in when you're in the bath. It's an invasion of privacy, that's what it is.
You in a bath? That'd stop any invasion, that would.
Well, I'm not having it in my house a moment longer, do you hear? And if it doesn't go, I will. I can promise you that. Promises, always promises.
I mean, basically, Joan Sims spends her entire time, and I'm going to go back from the microphone for this, like this. I'm not having that in my house. I'm not having that in my house. I'm not doing that. You never touched me. You never met my mother. So, Joan Sims is not the most nuanced performance, but I find her very charming and wonderful at the same time.
Love her. Yeah.
One of the things that always happens is every time Bung's phoned, he says, "We weren't doing anything." We weren't doing anything.
Yeah.
So there's a lovely bit of business in the bedroom with him, with his trousers under the mattress. And Joan Sims, who spends all her time, apart from the last part of the film, in bed wearing a nightcap,
that's right,
is left in bed.
Yeah, and there's always some bedpan business as well. Like, she sticks her foot in a bedpan accidentally, and you hear the dong noise and all of that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, you never take me anywhere. My mother's funeral doesn't count. There's lots of that.
There's a lot of that.
What's quite interesting is, as the Carry On films develop, in the first few films, Hattie Jakes and Sid James and Carry On Cabby, for example, have a very believable, quite sweet marriage with each other. From now on, husband and wife are always nagging. The wife's generally always nagging. Yeah, that's the thing.
Absolutely.
That's the trope that the Carry On film kind of goes with. That's right.
Very much the kind of the nagging wife, the nightmare mother-in-law that they always make jokes about dying and all of this kind of thing, right? It's that and that ongoing. But Joan Sims does it very well. She is very funny. Makes me laugh.
She's wonderful.
So
wonderful.
Detective Bung is called into the police station because a woman's gone missing. This is where we meet Peter Butterworth's character of Detective Slowbottom. Again, another common trope, obviously, in the Carry-Ons. Very silly names, right? Very silly character names.
They love a silly name. They love a silly name. They absolutely. And I love this because when Harry H. Corbett arrives into the police station, he's wearing essentially Sherlock Holmes' outfit. He's got the pipe, he's got the tweeds, and he looks good. He looks good. He walks in and you think,
yeah,
okay, he's going to be great. And actually, one of the things that made me laugh out loud, and maybe it's just me, he says, that's 6 women who've disappeared from those woods. Yeah. Do you think there could be a connection?
Yeah.
And I made me laugh like a train.
Me too. I love it. And you get lots of funny business with Jim Dale talking to the 2 policemen about what he was up to in the woods with his girlfriend, and the back and forth and who's talking to who and who's taking a note of who's taking down something, what's she wearing, a skirt, take this down, slow bottom, all that stuff,
The
lots of silly wordplay.
Yeah, the Carry-On films work so superbly when it's wordplay. Carry-On Cleo had a lot of that.
Yeah.
And when there are 3 people in a scene quickly sparring with each other, it works superbly.
As I understand it, you took this girl out to Holcombe Woods, right?
That's right, yes.
For what purpose, Mr. Potter?
Hey?
What did you take her out there for?
Well, I don't know. We just sort of felt like it.
Felt like it.
Felt like what?
I wouldn't like to say, Sergeant.
I'm asking him. Well, Mr. Potter.
Well, we just felt like getting a bit of fresh air and that.
I see.
Getting a bit of what?
Fresh air and that.
What's that?
Same as the other.
Oh, I see.
Well, Mr. Potter, you took her into the woods. How far did you go?
Oh, not very far, because I've only known her a year.
Don't put that down. No, what I meant was, how far did you get into the woods?
Oh, not very far. Just to this little clearing I know.
Do you happen to know what Doris was wearing?
Yes, a sort of white frilly blouse with a dark green jacket and a long green skirt.
Did you get that down?
Oh, no, as I said, I've only known her a year.
I'm talking to my assistant.
Really funny. Later we get some great stuff with Kenneth Williams. I love that. I'm Dr. Watt, who was my uncle, or he was, like all of that stuff. Brilliant. So, yeah, I love this. And so they decide they're going to go and investigate, and they decide to pay a little visit to the house just on the edge of the woods, right? And see if they saw or heard anything suspicious. So the 3 of our main characters, our 2 detectives and Jim Dale, Albert Potter, they go to this big, old, creepy house. And this is it. This is where most of the action takes place, right? This big Gothic house. And it's very like, it's the old dark house, isn't it, in a sense?
It is.
We've even got a big, scary-looking butler who opens the door, played by Bernard Bresslaw. Bernard Bresslaw, who I think had been in one Carry-On film up until this point, Carry-On Cowboy, slightly problematically playing a Native American, now gets to play a butler. Basically, he was often cast with his size kind of very much taking the fore, right? Like, he was, I think, 6'7", 6'8", or something ridiculous.
No,
so
absolutely.
He plays the big man.
He's a tall guy. He's a tall guy. I just wanted to say one of the other things that made me laugh. I'm sorry, because there's a lot of things that made me laugh.
Yeah.
They're looking at the manky, hairy finger.
Yeah.
And Harry H. Corbett says to Jim Dale, "Is this one of hers?"
Is this one of hers?
And it just they play it so straight, though. They play it so straight. It's exceptional. So, we're at the house. I mean, this is one of the best Carry-On films, and there's very rarely 60 seconds go by without a joke.
Absolutely, yeah.
So even ringing the doorbell is a note that says, "Please knock."
That's right.
So
there's something too about Avery Avenue. What road are we on? Avery Avenue, right?
Yeah.
Then we must explore Avery Avenue. Like all this stuff. It's
it's what
constant.
even they turn up in the most adorable little car.
Yes.
This is why it looks so good. It looks really good because they've got this little car, this Edwardian car, and it looks, the 3 of them are crammed into it, so it looks slightly like a clown car.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's so beautiful and adorable. It's chitty chitty bang bang type situation.
Very much.
It's lovely. So the door is answered by Socket. Now, this is where immediately you're thinking, for me, Addams Family. I'm thinking...
Totally. We were in the Munsters, the Addams Family. It's all that kind of stuff, isn't it?
Completely.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful because he says, the master is dead. I'll go and see if he's available.
Yeah.
Could I see the master of the house?
The master of the house is dead, sir. He's been dead 15 years now. But if you'll come in, I'll ask him if he can see you.
Yeah.
And immediately you're thinking, what is going on? And then you've got so often repeated in so many comedy horror films, the eyes following them round the room from the painting.
So good. Yeah, the eyes are moving. And of course, what it turns out to be is we meet Valeria, played by Fenella Fielding. Absolute iconic performance, right? I think, she's only really, this is really her only Carry On film. I think she did a brief scene in an earlier film, Carry On Regardless.
Carry On Regardless,
That's
she was
right.
in, yes.
That's right.
As Penny Panting.
Incredible.
Panting.
And me and Susan disagree about Carry On Regardless, but I'm a fan of that one.
It's the only argument we've ever had. It's the only argument we've ever had.
That's right. But here she is in, I would say, one of the most iconic characters in the whole of the Carry On series, actually, considering she's not really in any other films. And what do you think of her? What do you think of Valeria, Susan?
Well, it's going for the sexiness of Morticia Addams.
Very Morticia, yes. That's
it's
right.
really going for the Morticia type situation because the thing about Morticia I always loved was she was so desperately in love with Gomez.
Yeah.
Like, she was so sexy, but she didn't care. She was so into her husband, and that's what made it really, really lovely.
Yes.
Now, in this film, which I hadn't completely appreciated, Kenneth Williams and Fenella Fielding are brother and sister.
That's right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, there's no suggestion of anything.
No.
Let me make that very clear. But that means that Fenella Fielding can be sexy with whoever she wants.
Yes.
Now, she's largely drawn to monsters.
to Oddbod, isn't she? She loves Oddbod.
And Socket, though. There's that thing at the start.
Yeah.
There's did you spot the bit where Socket, so that's Bernard Bresslaw, who's this, he never makes eye contact, partly because he's 6'7". He says to Fenella Fielding, to Valeria, I'm sorry, I said I'd get the master. And he says, you won't send me back there.
Yeah.
And you go, where the hell did you come from? And then Fenella Fielding launches herself at this butler. And there's a beautiful, it's such a silly thing. It's like sometimes when, like, your brother would lie on top of you and say, stop hitting yourself, Susan, stop hitting yourself, Susan.
Yeah.
She says, let me go, while she's clamped round him.
Yes.
So she is very attracted to Oddbod and the strange butler. So it gives her the freedom to use her sensuality in that way. She's much more delicate than I remembered. It's actually a very subtle performance.
You're right.
Though,
you're right,
isn't
actually. It is a subtle performance. For a Carry On film, it actually is. I think some people listening might be going, yes. What is it about this film that's subtle? But trust me, if you've watched as many Carry On films as Susan and I have at this point, this is subtle.
Oh,
right?
Yes, this is subtle.
And I think, but Fenella Fielding, she might be the only, I think she is the only Carry On cast member that I actually got to meet once.
Did you?
I used to work as a runner. One of my first ever runner jobs was at Children's BBC, and I used to work on Dick and Dom. And for some reason, I can't remember why, but there was some sketch that Dick and Dom had filmed, and Fenella Fielding was in it with them. And so I got to briefly meet her in the green room and bring her some teas and coffees. And she was the most brilliantly eccentric person. Just did not stop talking, didn't understand half of what she was talking about half the time, but she was incredible, absolutely incredible. But yeah, she's just got such a funny way about her, hasn't she? The way she talks, the way she delivers these lines, she's unmistakable. Yeah, unmistakable. Yeah,
she's unmistakable.
Socket.
I'm terribly sorry, miss. You won't send me back there.
I should do, Socket. If only you weren't so necessary to me. Enough. Let me go.
Isn't it wonderful when you meet these eccentric, wonderful people? Did I tell you about the time I met Sue Pollard?
Oh, and I love Sue. Do you know what? She's up there as well with one of my favourites.
Oh, my
Incredible.
God.
Yeah.
She just is Sue Pollard.
She is. She is.
That's not an act. That's Sue Pollard.
Well, do you know where I met Sue Pollard, Susan? This is another tick for our bingo card. I met her working on Pointless because she came on Celebrity Pointless one week. Yeah. And
I judged a plus-sized drag queen competition with Sue Pollard.
Amazing.
Truly the greatest evening of my life. It really was. She was amazing. So the thing about Carry On Screaming is I think without Fenella Fielding... this film wouldn't be as good. Now, sometimes in Carry On films you could substitute someone in, but I think Fenella Fielding, without her, it would not work as well as it does.
No, I can't think of who out of the regulars they could have cast in that role, you know. Initially, they offered it to Deborah Kerr, like famous, celebrated actress, star of one of my favourite movies of all time, The Innocents, as well. But she turned it down, probably not
thank
surprising.
You. Tell my agent I'm not available that week.
Not available, thank you.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. I couldn't have imagined Joan Sims or Barbara Windsor or Hattie Jakes or any of our regular Carry On cast playing Valeria. Yeah.
No, and I think as well it's that relationship with, and she hasn't been in as many Carry On films, but she and Kenneth Williams interact beautifully. And
so good.
Fenella Fielding says, Valeria says, I'll go and wake up my brother. And that's when you, I think, hit these kind of sciencey tropes. So down in the basement layer... much bigger than the rest of the house. Let's not worry about it.
Let's not worry about that. Yeah.
They've dug underneath. Listen, I'm sure they've got supporting beams. That's all I'm thinking, but I'm sure it's fine. And she does the whole thing you would expect. She throws the switch, doesn't she?
There's a lot of zzz, there's a lot of noises, humming, fizzing of electricity, electrodes, all of that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's exactly what you would... What they do so brilliant in this film is they hit the audience's every expectation.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And they pair that with... They did this so well with Cleo, too. They're pairing the tropes of this genre with funny Britishisms, right? And so you get this extraordinary, like, sparks of electricity, and Kenneth Williams sits upright, and then he goes, what time is it? And she goes, just past December. And he goes, I told you not to wake me up till March, or whatever, you know. And, like, immediately just becomes ridiculous, right? And I think that, again, that's when they get things so right, isn't it, with these films? When they balance the kind of the tropes really well of what they're satirising with that kind of very silly Britishness of the time, I suppose, you know?
And it really reminds... It's funny. It really reminds me of one of my favourite television shows. What we do in the shadows.
Oh, yes.
Where they resurrect one of the vampires early, and he's absolutely furious, or late. They forgot to wake him up, and it reminds me very much of that. I mean, I think I'm not suggesting that everyone's watched Carry On Screaming, but there are so many echoes in future projects as well. So he's not quite regenerated, and it's quite sweet. He has to take his portable charger with him. That's
right. He has to plug himself in. We've all been there. You know, your battery's running low. You've got to find the nearest socket. But yeah, there is that amazing moment. He goes up and meets the detectives, and then suddenly he sort of says, "Oh dear, plug me in," and you see him start to sort of fade and disappear and reappear and everything. Again, just Gerald Thomas having fun with camera trickery, I think, as well.
But it's even the scene that's happening there in that sitting room area. We see the sarcophagus for the mummy, so you're getting references for kind of other horror tropes as well.
Yeah.
And do you know what? The special effects aren't bad, because you've got the regeneration of the finger, you've got the disappearing. It's not bad, actually, is it?
It looks good. Like this film does genuinely look good. So Kenneth Williams, we talked about how brilliant he was as Julius Caesar in Carry On Cleo a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
What do you think of him here as Dr. Watt?
Oh, he's wonderful. He's loving every second of it, isn't he? He's loving it. He's loving the whole thing. He's loving the drama. He's loving the wordplay. He is brilliant.
I knew it! It's the police! We're done for! Oh, why did I ever meddle in this horrible business? I was happy enough as a simple chemist, making my little liver pills. They never did anyone any harm. Well, not if taken in moderation. Of course, if you overdid it...
Oh, for heaven's sake, pull yourself together. I'll see who it is. You look after him.
All very well for her to say, pull yourself together. But, I mean, look what happened to Dr. Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll. I was at school with them, you know. Yes, they always pinched me pocket money. So the change did him good.
We talked about this a lot on the podcast about how he has really sort of slowly emerged as the star, hasn't he? By about 8 or 9 films in, suddenly he's come into his own in these movies. And this is up there alongside his Julius Caesar, I think, as like just a great starring role for him.
One of the joys of watching the films in order is that you've seen the evolution of Kenneth Williams.
Yeah.
From quite a quiet, kind of nerdy character. Then in Carry On Cleo, he hits kind of a pinnacle as his performance of Julius Caesar, and I think the confidence he gets after that shows. And in this one, he's not forcing it. It's not a forced performance.
No,
but he is really very, very brilliant, and he's physically exceptional, and he's doing everything you would accept. I mean, this is the definition of camp at times. This is camp as knickers, to be honest.
Phenomenal. Yeah,
but
phenomenal.
He is brilliant, and this is the bit I wanted to talk to you on a business level, Mike. Welcome to Mike and I's podcast. Business,
yeah.
So they're kidnapping women. Valeria and Dr. Watt,
That's
Orlando
right.
Watt, are kidnapping women for the purpose of turning them into shop mannequins.
Yes, they have this whole sort of factory almost downstairs, right, where they are, like you said, it's revealed that Jim Dale's girlfriend from the opening scene, Angela Douglas, she has been kidnapped by them. She's unconscious. And they do this kind of process where they sort of dip her into this, like, it's like a batter. It's like a deep fryer. And obviously we get the iconic Frying tonight. And yes, so they are turning human women into shop mannequins. Now, how much money does that make them, Susan, do you think, considering the effort that it takes? Right?
Now, I don't mean to be this guy. But I've been spending a lot of time looking at my financial circumstances recently, right? Because I want to retire one day and everything else like that. And I'm looking at, where my money's going and everything. So, as it turns out, God, later on in the film, I mean, what you listeners have to understand is that Mike and I treat these films properly and seriously.
We do.
And pay attention. So,
we do.
Later on, very briefly, Kenneth Williams arrives with a big syringe and says it's petrifying solution that he has, petrifying liquid.
That's right, yes.
So, as I understand the scientific process, they kidnap the women, subdue them, inject them with petrifying... Now, this is terrifying. Think about this, what I'm about to say to you now, Mike. They inject them in with petrifying solutions. They are still alive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just dip them in some form of solution and turn them into hard plastic. But inside...
They're alive.
They are still alive.
Yes. This is important
Because
plot point. They're not dead. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Later on, they turn Jim Dale's girlfriend back into a human being.
That's right.
These women are in a perpetual living hell.
Yes.
In a clothing shop somewhere in the outskirts of London. So, what I don't understand, and I know, let's not tie ourselves in knots. Financially, this doesn't appear to make a lot of sense to me because they are using a lot of electricity. Yeah, it would seem to do this.
Yeah,
but they also don't seem. Do you think they're taking a delight in this? Is this because this is something they
just enjoy
doing?
Well, it must be, right? It must be. I think Kenneth Williams, I think you can tell Orlando Watt is enjoying himself, right? He's having a lovely time. Yes. I think Valeria is not that fussed. She thinks the whole thing's a bit vulgar, I think, really. So you do wonder.
She just keeps saying, we've got more orders in. We've got more orders in.
But we know that they've only done this to 6. I think 6 women have disappeared from these woods, right? So... Yes. Yeah, you just think 6 women making 6 mannequins in a year in this way. Is that really sustainable business plan, Susan?
I don't think it is, Mike. No. Because they're selling them to small shops on the high street. How much are they going to pay for a realistic mannequin?
That's what I thought.
I mean, it seems to me that what they've wanted to do is they wanted to do sort of a House of Wax type thing.
Yes.
And they've thought, how can we do it in because bearing in mind, this is not meant to be a horror film. It's meant to be a comedy horror film. And they've come up with this idea. So it's a lot of work for, I don't think, a lot of reward. And then what happens, you see, is they then have to send Oddbod and Oddbod Jr. out to get more. I mean, as a business proposition, it's a very high risk, shall we say?
I think so.
Because they have to kidnap a woman every single time they want to make a mannequin.
And they're doing it from the woods that are evidently right next to their house, right? Because the only reason that the police are at this house is because they're like, oh, they live right next door to the woods where these women were kidnapped.
Yes.
Let's go have a look.
Yes, and a competent police force would immediately think that was suspicious. The point is that Detective Sergeant Bung doesn't. I mean, if you were to do one of those modern FBI-style geographical profiles, I mean, I think you would work it out quite quickly.
I think you might. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't work. So, but I mean, it's good fun, and I don't know about you, but the process, I liked seeing the process of dipping it in, and
I loved it.
You know, all of that kind of stuff. It was brilliant, wasn't it?
Loved it all. I think it's a really fun idea, and it means that, like you say, it's just throwing in another extra trope. It's a House of Wax, it's a Vincent Price type thing that we've got going on here, and it means you get to have fun with creepy mannequins as well and that kind of thing. So I like it. It doesn't make a lick of jot sense, but it's
no sense.
It's fun. I like it.
Let's see now. What does she weigh?
120 pounds.
Allow 3 minutes per pound. That's 6 hours at regular 7.
All right, Oddbod, we're ready. Please don't say it.
Say what, dear?
You know perfectly well what you always say at this time. It's an extremely bad taste.
What? Oh, you mean frying tonight?
And I think, importantly, we should say that meanwhile, back at the police station, John Pertwee has used the finger to make Oddbod Jr.,
right,
who is just a bit smaller than Oddbod. So we've now got two creatures kicking about the place, haven't we?
Exactly. And then the film kind of continues with this kind of investigation. There's a great scene where Harry Corbett goes back to the house, and this time Valeria kind of seduces him, right? And that's where we get the iconic "Do you mind if I smoke?" scene, and she begins to smoke on the sofa, as in she begins to emanate smoke from her person. So yeah, wonderful. I mean, great stuff, isn't it? Great stuff. That's one of those really iconic moments. Yeah,
it's just it's done so beautifully. Because Harry H. Corbett is obviously rather taken with Valeria, and she's sort of quite subtly. She knows it. I mean, she knows the effect that she has on men. And when she says, "Do you mind if I smoke?" and it's just a very slow release of this kind of smoke into the atmosphere, and it just adds to the whole thing. And I love the references. They've done it really brilliantly, because Orlando Watt Kenneth Williams says, "You just drops in. I was at school with Dr. Frankenstein and Dr. Jekyll."
Yes, I know. I love it.
You know, I mean, they're just dropping in all of these little tropes. So Harry H. Corbett has his end away, we assume, with Valeria. Meanwhile, plot-wise, Albert Potter Jim Dale spots this mannequin of his girlfriend in a shop.
Yes.
And they go to see it, which is where we find, and I always remember this from being younger, we have a very important plot point, which is that as part of the process, dear God, it takes hours, they remove any birthmarks or moles.
That's right. God. I mean, they're very thorough, again, for what can't be a huge amount of financial reward for this mannequin. But there you go. Yeah.
And I would like to know how they do it, because I had a mole removed, Mike.
Yeah.
And it leaves a mark for a while.
Yeah.
Yet Fenella Fielding's able to remove moles and birthmarks, so there's no scarring of any kind at all.
Yes, and there's a whole bit, isn't there, where, okay, she had a birthmark in a particularly kind of private place. Slowbottom's got to investigate the mannequin. Then the thing comes off in his hands and it says "Made in England" or something, right? And there's a lot of like kind of funny, silly stuff with that. But yes, this is where Jim Dale is like very, very adamant that, okay, his girlfriend has been turned into a mannequin. in, right? We also get this interesting scene at this point in the movie where Bung and Slowbottom decide to go and interview Dan, the lavatory man, right?
Yes.
A lavatory attendant who once worked at the old dark house as a gardener. So they go to interview him. And this is where we get Charles Hawtrey's one scene in the movie. What did you think of this scene with Dan?
Do you know, it's actually quite disturbing. Because you're in these... I mean, for the first thing I think is, I'm old enough to remember when public toilets had attendants like that. I mean, It's very sweet. He's there as the lavatory attendant. And they sit in the back room and he's going, oh, I used to work as the gardener there. And absolutely. And it's not entirely clear what he's really about to tell them. Probably he's seen... Oh, excuse me, I've got a customer.
Yes.
And he is drowned in a toilet.
Yes. Very quickly.
I mean, it's really... It's actually, when you think about it, someone is murdered.
Yeah.
In this Carry On film.
Yeah.
I mean, in quite a horrific way.
And it's quite a shock.
It's very dark, isn't it?
It's quite a shock because we as Carry On fans, 12 films into the series, go, oh, that's Charles Hawtrey. He's going to be an important new character. He's probably going to be one of the main characters in this. And then he dies after about 3 minutes. It's like Janet Leigh in Psycho. You get your biggest name in and you kill him off. Yeah.
It's exactly like Psycho. It really is. And for the brief moments he's there, he's absolutely charming and I thought really good in it. But it's very clear that the film could have easily been sustained without this. But the funniest thing about it, though, is, and one of the things I love about the Carry On films is Kenneth Williams is often in disguise by simply adding a beard, a fake beard. So Fenella Fielding and Kenneth Williams are following the police, and he's just wearing a very fake beard. Like, I mean, this is the thing, is that the other thing, if you've not seen a Carry On film, is that they are often quite cartoonish. They're often quite... We see it. I mean, I can't tell you how much I laughed. The next film we're going to talk about is Carry On, Don't Lose Your Head, where Sid James is in a series of disguises looking like Sid James, yet no one recognises him.
Right. Oh, my God, it's so good. Yeah.
You know, one of the themes of a Carry On film is if you put on, and we'll see it in this film in a minute, actually, when DC Slowbottom is in drag, unrecognisable, apparently.
Yes.
If you put on a hat or a beard or a dress, no one knows who you are.
Oh my God. So yeah, absolutely. And we get a lot of that good stuff towards the end of this movie. And by this point in the film, Bung, our main character, has become completely infatuated with Valeria, hasn't he? Basically, he kind of has stopped caring about whatever else he's supposed to be doing, his marriage, his job, and he's become obsessed with Valeria. He comes to see her again. She's getting a little bit tired of him turning up at the house all the time. And this is the point where she gives him a special drink, right? And this is where, like with all these tropes, now we get Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, essentially, right? We get, Bung drinks this kind of poisonous potion and he turns into... I mean, what does he turn into? A kind of like slightly hairy, naughty version of himself, basically. It's not like a huge difference.
It's sort of like, it's also got a bit of dog. Yeah. It's a little bit of kind of like a dog. It's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde idea, but he doesn't turn into Mr. Hyde. He turns into kind of a slightly hairy Harry H. Corbett dog thing who can be used and is sent to go and get the mannequin back from the store, because obviously that's why she does it. So, but he also goes home to Joan Sims, who, and again, I love this. He's clearly some form of monstrosity, but she just thinks he's had a drink and wants to have his end away. And
she says something like, "You look terrible."
So the mannequin is back in the house again. Mm-hmm. So at this point, we have pretty standard Carry On. They're going to go and do a stakeout in the woods.
That's right.
To see if they can catch who's doing it. And Peter Butterworth is in drag. Now, I cannot tell you how much it makes me laugh when a British character actor puts on a dress and a wig and everyone goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, madam. I love it." And it's clearly Peter Butterworth.
Yes. Yes.
Isn't it?
Absolutely brilliant. And that happens in almost every single Carry On film. And often the men will look at them and go, whoa,
No,
as
that's
well.
right.
And it's clearly a man. Sometimes he still has facial hair. Yeah, incredible. But yeah, you get this moment, like you say, Harry H. Corbett doesn't realise it's slow bottom, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Then eventually does. Meanwhile, Emily Bung, his wife, Joan Sims, has been sort of following him, right? She's suspicious that he's up to something and sees him, her husband, leave the police station with a woman, i.e. Peter Butterworth in a wig, and decides to follow them to this stakeout in the woods, right, as well. And this is where poor Joan Sims, poor Emily Bung, gets abducted by Junior, I believe, right?
Oddbod abducts Peter Butterworth in drag.
Yeah.
And Oddbod Jr. abducts Joan Sims. So both of these women have been abducted.
Both of these women.
Both these women have been abducted. And this is where, I mean, they're back at this house more than you would think and still suspect nothing.
Nothing. I know. They've been back about 3 times in 2 days. Yeah.
There's a bit of kind of, the only bit that's slightly extraneous is when Jim Dale and Harry H. Corbett are in bed together and a snake arrives. It's fine.
Oh, yeah.
It's fine, but it doesn't really add anything, in particular. That's happening upstairs, whereas downstairs, and this is the only part of the film, and I've watched it a few times now, and I think I understand what's happening. So they've got Joan Sims, Emily Bung, and they've got Peter Butterworth in drag. And they say some very cruel things about Joan Sims's body.
Yes.
Is this the best you could do? What am I expected to do with this? It's a load of old rubbish.
I can sell it at Lacey's. They deal exclusively with fittings for the more matronly figure.
Well, they'll have a fit when they see this one.
Oh, don't waste time. Inject her.
Yes, well, the target area is large enough.
This is one of the things which is quite a little bit difficult about the Carry On films in that, and it wasn't Barbara Windsor's fault, but she became the archetype of the sexy Carry On girl.
Yes. And
Joan Sims and Hattie Jakes were essentially categorised as the slightly frumpy. Now, Joan Sims, I don't care what weight you are. I don't care what you look like. But in terms of film terms, she would be seen as the more matronly, the older woman. Now, she's a size 16 or something like that. And as I say, I don't care what weight anyone is anyway. But in terms of film terms, she would have been seen as overweight.
Yes.
Now, all I kept thinking of this, and this is the only negative I've really got about Carry On Screaming, the actress herself is lying there in her underwear while Kenneth Williams and Fenella Fielding are delivering lines about how fat she is, basically.
I know. And I did think, poor Joan Sims, right? Because that is just the actress lying there while they're basically going, ooh, what are we going to do with this? We can't do anything with this.
Can I tell you the only thing that I think what I think they were trying to do is, because they say that about Joan Sims.
Yeah.
Right? Then they go to Peter Butterworth and go, oh, this is much more like it. Now, it's clearly not.
It's clearly not. Yeah, that's true.
I wonder if they were maybe trying to make a joke and it just doesn't. I'm trying to be kind here.
No, I think you're right.
Because
probably.
they then walk over to Peter Butterworth and go, oh, yes, this is much more like it. It's clearly not much more like it. It's Peter Butterworth in a wig.
Yeah.
So the only thing is, and the references continue because then later on someone says there's something horrific in that box and it's Joan Sims' mannequin.
Right, yeah.
And it's the one bit that's a bit of a sour note for me is, the comments about Joan Sims. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's the only thing that was a bit uncomfortable for me.
I agree. I think it is. We talked about it a little bit on our podcast last week with Joan Sims generally and the way in which it's a bit sad because she is such a brilliant, beautiful, versatile actress. And last week we got to talk about her in Carry On Cowboy, playing quite a different kind of interesting role in that. And I think from this point onwards, sadly, she does get slightly lumped into that wife, that slightly frumpy, nagging wife role, which is a shame because, and not that she's not always brilliant at everything she does, but you're right. I think it is a bit sad, that moment. I think it didn't need to be in there. It's not adding anything to the comedy of what already was a very funny film.
It's not, but one of the things as well that Carry On films kind of lean into is that as Sid James gets older, he can still keep going after younger and younger women. But again, the James Bond films would do that. We talked in one of our podcasts about the scandal when Monica Bellucci was cast, who was the same age as James Bond, and how everyone went, it's horrific. How could James Bond go after someone like that? So there's a really lovely chase sequence that happens then. Oddbod and Oddbod Jr. chasing Jim Dale and Harry H. Corbett, who I think has finally worked out something might be going on in the house.
Finally, they've clocked on that this house maybe isn't okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that chase scene, it's almost a bit Scooby-Doo-esque or something, isn't it? You know, it's
it really
good stuff.
is,
Yeah,
it's back to the cartoonish kind of thing of, I mean, they literally, in this film, run through walls and leave a shape of themselves.
They do. That's right. I mean, it's a cartoon. It's a live-action cartoon, basically, isn't it? You know?
They find Doris,
the
girlfriend, and realise they can reverse the process, which is when we realise that the women are alive all the time.
Which adds a whole layer of horror to everything we've seen, basically.
Horrific. So then it's kind of the final battle. They're in the sitting room. Jim Dale takes the potion.
Yes, that's right.
It made me laugh so much. The cheapness.
I know.
Because he becomes strong and he's throwing Oddbod and Oddbod Jr. And it's literally, isn't it, a dummy?
It literally is, yeah. It looks like a cushion with a jacket on it, basically.
They've got no money for stunt performers. So they just throw essentially a giant cushion with a wig on it across the room.
Yeah.
Jim Dale turns back and he's quite cute. I thought Jim Dale was quite cute when he took the potion. He's quite sweet.
He's quite sweet, is he? Does your other half still not a fan of Jim Dale?
Oh yes. So if one of the problems we've got is that my better half really doesn't like Jim Dale, which is causing a lot of problems because he's in a lot of them. She didn't mind him in this one as much.
Okay, that's good.
She doesn't like his legs.
Oh, interesting. I don't think I've ever noticed
he's all legs.
Yeah.
She keeps saying he's all legs, and he is all legs, and I don't know why.
That's interesting.
Maybe that's why she hated it when I made her watch Long Legs the other day.
Oh, she doesn't like too much leg. Yeah, fair enough.
She doesn't like horror films.
No.
It's horrendous. I said to her, let's watch this film Long Legs. So I went, oh, what's that about? And I went, oh, let's just watch it.
No.
Let's just watch it. And she turned to me at the end and went, and the fuck was that?
What was that? Yeah.
I said, let's watch a YouTube video and find out. Because that's what I do at the end of it.
I mean, speaking of, we talked about how Carry On Screaming is cramming a lot into its plot. Long Legs is about 8 films in one, isn't it, by the end? I'm like, why are there magical, creepy dolls with orbs in them? What's that got to do? Anyway, we don't have time to get into that.
I love it. Anyway. So, then Dr. Watt comes in with Valeria, ready to petrify them. But handily, do you remember the mummy I mentioned an hour and a half ago?
Do you remember Chekhov's mummy that was in the living room? Yeah.
A handy bolt of lightning strikes it. He comes to life.
Yeah.
And gets rid of Kenneth Williams.
Incredible. In the most iconic scene of the film, of course, he chases Kenneth Williams all the way down the stairs into the huge basement, into the big vat of petrifying liquid in which Kenneth Williams once again screams frying tonight as he dies, I'm assuming, in that liquid. So, yeah.
But one of the things that we've always talked about is that we're laughing about it, but there is no money.
No.
So there are a lot of physical stunts, especially in the first few films. There's lots of falling downstairs. There's lots of those things.
Yes.
Kenneth Williams is doing this himself.
Yeah.
The performers in these films went for it when they were required to go for it.
Right. Yeah.
He's gone. It's not the end, though. Jim Dale turns up. He's got married to Angela Douglas, greeted by Detective Sergeant Bung. I can't wait to hear what you say about the end of this. Walk into the living room. The mannequin of his wife is there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
There. Fenella Fielding's in the kitchen with an apron because I don't know if you know this, Mike. And listeners, this is sarcasm. All it takes is for the love of a good man to tame a woman and put an apron on her.
Yeah. Exactly.
And to move from a giant country house to a tiny terraced house.
Yeah, honestly.
Everyone's fine with this.
Everyone's fine.
And then the last shot of the film is the Joan Sims mannequin winking at the audience.
I mean, it's It's horrific in a lot of ways, if you think about it, this ending. I think it's... Valeria, like you say, she lived in a lovely mansion. She had
beautiful.
She had a thriving... She had servants. She was a thriving businesswoman, right? And now she's in an apron in a kitchen of a terraced house, living with a man whose wife has become a mannequin who is forced for all eternity, we're assuming, to just stand and watch her husband with another woman in front of her as well.
Joan Sims is okay with it because she gives a cheeky wink at the end. What does that mean, though? This is what I mean, and I don't want to turn this into more than what it is. But why is she winking at the end with a bit of a smile on her face? Is she? Can she come back to life? Is she going to kill them?
Yeah. I mean, let's hope so. Maybe that's what it is. Is she plotting her revenge? Is that what that wink is, do we think? Yeah, I don't know. I had, and I've seen this film quite a few times, I had no memory of that ending. To me, in my head, Kenneth Williams falls into that vat, he screams "Frying tonight," and a title card, "The End," comes up. Yeah, like... I had no memory of that little epilogue, and I'm not sure it was needed, Susan, to be honest. I don't know.
What I would really like is, because I really like at the end of every series, you do like a mailbag episode where people send in their thoughts.
Yeah.
I'd like people to send in their thoughts of what they think this ending is. I want this to become the Blair Witch Project of this series. Because I've seen so many videos of people saying what they think the end of the Blair Witch Project is. I would like people to watch the end of Carry On Screaming, and I want you to tell me if Joan Sims is going to kill them... what's happening there, because I don't understand what now I know they probably just said wink to the camera, Joan, and she went all right, but I want to know what this means. The meaning of the wink. The meaning of the wink at the end of Carry On Screaming, I think, is the most important question this entire series will bring up. Not is there a soul, not is there life after death. No. This is it. The meaning of the wink. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, incredible. It's what a fun film, though, right? I mean, it really is wonderful. It's coming up to, 60 years old next year, this film. And I think it's especially in comparison to certain other films from this era and certain other Carry On films, it's aged pretty well, right? I think it has. But I think those horror tropes... You know, just look at the fact that, I mean, there was a Tom Cruise mummy film. There's, these, especially kind of the universal monsters and all of these things, they're tropes that people keep returning to. And I think it's timeless, and I think the performances are timeless. And a lot of the Carry On films you watch, and they're very clearly of its time. Yeah. I think this is one that could have been made not that long ago, actually. Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's really, really a wonderful, wonderful film. And do you know what it is? It's Sunday afternoon. You've got a pot of tea and some biscuits. Stick on Carry On Screaming, because I think it's great. And I'm going to ask you this over on our other podcast. So people tune in to Carry On Up the podcast to hear where this places for you in your Carry On rankings, Susan, as well. Yes. You know, because a lot of people do consider this one of the best. In a 2018 retrospective on the series, the BFI, the British Film Institute, named Carry On Screaming as one of the 5 best in the series, alongside Cleo, Up the Khyber, Camping, and Matron. We've already talked about how Cleo is absolutely one of the best so far. Yes. So I'll be intrigued to hear over on our other podcast where this ranks for you. But it's up there, right? It's got to be up there. Oh, yeah. Listen, it's one of the best. Without question, it is one of the best. If you're looking for kind of an iconic Carry On film to start with, Screaming is absolutely probably the best place to go. Especially as a horror fan. It's a lovely gateway. It really is. So there you go. Well, Susan, thank you. What a lovely, interesting mashup, genre monster mashup of our 2 podcasts that we got to do here. And as always, we've ended up talking for about 2 hours. This is what happens when we get together, but it deserves it. It deserves it. Because it is an absolutely iconic film. And I'm so pleased that you included it in this series, because I just looked at some of the comments under your post on Instagram, and I think a lot of people like this film. There are more people like us out there than you'd think, Mike. I think there are. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think hopefully
this might get some people on the Carry On bandwagon. I want to hear what people make of these movies if they're watching them for the first time, and let me and Susan know what on earth you make of these Carry On films.
Yeah, if you want to join us online, there is a DVD box set of all of the Carry On films for a fairly reasonable price. Watch along with us.
Yeah.
Join the slow descent into madness.
Oh my God.
The 60s develops.
Carry On Up the podcast. Find it wherever you get your podcast and listen along as Susan slowly loses her grip on reality as we hurtle towards the smutty.
This could be the last thing I ever do. This could be the end.
And my final question for you, Susan, what is your favourite movie in this kind of subgenre? The science, horror, man-made monster subgenre. Do you have a favourite?
I have to say Carry On Screaming and Young Frankenstein.
Yeah, fantastic.
I love them all, but I could stick on at least once or twice a year either of those two films and have a lovely time.
I love it. Well, Susan, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
And that's it for this week. Thank you all so much for listening. One more time, a huge thank you to my brilliant guest, one of my absolute favourite people, Susan Calman. If you want to hear more from me and Susan, like if you want to hear me and Susan having that sort of conversation every single week, then sign up to our other podcast together, Carry On Up the Podcast, in which Susan Calman and I are rewatching and discussing every single film in the Carry On franchise. There are 30 films to cover all together. These episodes drop every Monday, and I think the latest episode that dropped, we are only on the 5th Carry On film of the 30, so it's still early days. We've got a long way to go, so join us on this journey. Carry On Up the Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. But let us know what you thought of this week's episode and what you thought of Carry On Screaming. I am particularly intrigued to know what people thought of it who just watched this film for the first time, especially if there are any listeners out there that had never experienced a Carry On film. What on earth did you make of Carry On Screaming? You can email me, evolutionofhorror@gmail.com. You can also find us on the socials. Evolution of Horror is on Instagram and Facebook. I'm Mike Muncer. I'm on Instagram and Blue Sky. If you want to discuss this week's episode with fellow listeners, you can join the Evolution of Horror Discord or the Evolution of Horror discussion group on Facebook. If you want to get treated to regular bonus content and get ad-free versions of all episodes, sign up to our Patreon, patreon.com/Evolution of Horror. You can find this podcast in all the usual podcast places, and this is part of the Evolution of Horror network. You can also find Carry On Up the Podcast, Hammer Time, and The Detective and the Log Lady, all Evolution of Horror podcasts, and they're all available wherever you get your podcasts. So, on to next week then, and next week we are taking somewhat of a handbrake turn into a very different tone. Next week I'm going to be joined by a brand new guest, Emma Westwood, and we are going to be talking about the strange psychological horror / sci-fi film Seconds from 1966. Join us next week for all of this and more on the Evolution of Horror.